Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back again to Joe Stunner Boxing. I'm Joe Stunner. If you've already subscribed, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. Want to build up a nice little boxing community here, and any support you can give is always appreciated. Now, if you've seen any of my videos before, you'll know that I'm really fascinated by psychology, what makes the mind tick, the psyche, call it what you will. And this obviously applies to boxing because, I don't know, 80, 90%, whatever you want to say, of boxing is mental. You've got to have self-belief. You've got to have an element of, well, more than an element of control. You've got to be able to control your emotions. You've got to be able to do the right thing, which is not necessarily the thing that you want to do or which is the easiest thing. It might be the thing that you don't want to do, and it might be damn difficult. But I wanted to share with you something a little unusual. Bear with me on this, because I saw a documentary yesterday which I think sums up the perfect fighting mentality, and it has nothing to do with boxing. It was a documentary called Hating Peter Tatchell. It's on Netflix. If you've got Netflix, go watch it. I can't recommend it enough. It's a brilliant documentary. Now, for those of you that don't know who Peter Tatchell is, he is actually a civil rights activist. He's a gay fella from I think he started to become an activist in the late 70s, maybe the mid 70s, when there was an awful lot of violence against gay people. And he organised what they called gay liberation. I don't know what they call it now, but back in my day, it was called gay liberation. And he's now, I think he's in his 60s now. He's a tall, thin guy, university educated, don't look like he's got a punch in him. But this guy, the amount of abuse, the amount of assaults, the amount of battering he's taken over the years for causes that he believes in is frightening. It's a miracle he's still alive. A couple of examples would be, there's a footage of him in, I think it's in Red Square in Moscow, where he's supporting gay and lesbian Russian people. And him and the others get an absolute kicking from these neo-Nazis, vermin, and the police were colluding with them. They weren't trying to stop the beating. So Tatchell took a real beating. Another occasion, this is the sort of thing this guy did. It's quite amazing. He tried a citizen's arrest on Robert Mugabe in London. Robert Mugabe, Zimbabwe, essentially a Zimbabwe dictator, responsible for all sorts of genocidal activity. Tatchell tried to arrest this guy. I'm arresting you, citizen's arrest for crimes against humanity. When he got outside, Mugabe's, thugs, they gave Tatchell the beating of his life, and there's footage of him being assaulted, lying in the gutter, spark out. Okay, so he's been doing this stuff all his life and taking beating after beating after beating. And again, he's not a fighting man. He's a thin, tall, thin guy. But this guy has got guts by the skipful. And he talked extensively in the documentary about how he would feel so much fear going into battle, essentially, doing all these sort of activist stunts, trying to raise awareness for minorities, whether it's gay minorities or others. He would feel so much fear that he'd feel physically sick, but he did it anyway. Because his attitude was, I'm not speaking for him, I'm just saying this is my interpretation of what he was saying. I'm not for sale. This principle supersedes everything else, including any fear that including, at one point he says, I might get killed doing this. But it didn't matter. He was going to do it anyway. So it seems to me that having a cause, it's a good hook on which to hang, shall we say, control over fear, or how can I phrase this? It's a good hook on which to hang one's doubts, one's fears, and to actually take steps forward when you desperately want to take steps backward. Now, of course, as boxing fans, we all know about Muhammad Ali. At the height of his powers, he gave up his world title. He was considered a social pariah. He said, he refused to go to Vietnam. He refused to be inducted into the draft. And he risked throwing everything away, fame, money, his status, the world title, everything, over his religion. And he famously said, "No Viet Cong ever called me nigger." In other words, he had a moral point that wasn't for sale. There was no compromise. Some fighters seem to regard boxing as something they do, but they don't necessarily have that innate desire, that innate cause. And by the way, the cause may not be something social or something political or something religious. It may just be a personal thing. You desperately want to be world champ, so you're driven. And there are certain elements of that are uncompromising and not up for negotiation. But some fighters, and I don't mean this disrespectfully in any way to any fighter, because if you get in the ring, it's the loneliest place in the world. But let's take, for example, I did a video on Joseph Parker. Joseph Parker, to me, has a lot of talent, ton of talent. But he's frustrating because he very rarely seems to enhance most of it. And he gives lackadaisical performances, and it's just, there's something missing. And maybe it is that cause. Maybe he just doesn't really feel the need to be world champion that much. Maybe he boxes because, hey, I went into it, I'm good at it, I've had some success, I make money. He seems so laid back. The other example, obvious example, would be David Price, who seems like a really lovely fella, gentle giant. But he seemed to be riddled with self-doubt, and his confidence seemed shattered, and his career was initially derailed, his professional career, by a couple of drug cheats. So I'm not without sympathy for that. But he would have fought Tyson Fury when Fury was British champ and Commonwealth champ, but he weren't interested. Fury gave the belts up, probably considered it high risk, low reward. I'll go down a different path. But Price, again, maybe Price just boxed because he was good at it. Up to a point, he was a bronze medalist in the Olympics, and he won some professional titles. But he didn't have that cause. And again, I've mentioned, political and religious causes, but you might just be a really driven individual person who wants to get somewhere. Tyson Fury often speaks about his gypsy heritage. The gypsy people, the Roma people, have been persecuted themselves throughout history. It wasn't just the Jews that were going into Hitler's gas ovens. It was gas chambers. It was gypsies and gay people as well, and all sorts of other people. It wasn't just the Jewish people. But maybe, Fury frequently seems driven to, he calls himself the Gypsy King. There's a lot of pride there in his culture. So culture is another thing that can motivate you, can give you a real cause, and can push you beyond your doubts, beyond your fears. So again, let me recommend that documentary, Hating Peter Tatchell. It's on Netflix, and it's, I think, a fascinating study. Regardless of what you think of Tatchell, regardless of what you think of his methods of activism, that's irrelevant. The guy's got guts because he faces his fears, because he does the thing that he feels is correct and will not compromise. So watch that documentary, really fascinating insight into the mind. Let me know your thoughts. Please leave them at the bottom of the, in the comments section. Thank you for watching the video. I always appreciate it. And yeah, you take care. It's, Friday now, isn't it? So the weekend's here. You have a nice weekend. You take care. Bye-bye.